Right, penultimate game week. Game week 37. It's a double game week, so if you're behind in your mini leagues, now's the time to maybe pick some differentials, but picking those double game week players, the ones you think will play twice, can actually help you claw up. I'm going to cover probably 6 topics today, starting with a mini Game Week 36 review. So I'm recording this with Game Week 36 still not finished, but I thought I'd just record this now. The state of the Premier League, so what teams have something to play for and what teams maybe can be already in chill mode. I guess players to target, a wildcard draft. So if you had a free hit or something for this game week, what would I pick? Captaincy and then what I'm going to do with my team. So I guess that was 6 things. But let's have a look at Game Week 36. And wasn't ballsy enough. Wilson, Isaac could go crazy in the second game. But so far, Wilson got 2 penalties. Scored 2 goals. Ended up with, I'm assuming he didn't get a yellow card. Oh, he did. Right. So he got 12 points, meaning captaincy of 24 points. Isaac, on the other hand, got an assist. So credit to those who went for Wilson. I think if I had to guess, Isaac's definitely going to start the next game. It's just, especially against Brighton, one of the stronger teams, but it's just about, it might mean Wilson will start as well. I mean, it was just 2 pens, but in terms of FPL, it doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, as an Arsenal fan, Brighton had to lose. Brighton beat us 3-0. The title is basically over. But I guess on an FPL standpoint, Estupiñán has come in quite strong, 17 points, which is ridiculous. 2 assists, scored a goal in the last minute, bonus points, ridiculous. I think there was talk about dropping Estupiñán, but one thing I would say is I think the injury of Rashford probably helped. So at least on my end, I could have feasibly started Rashford instead of Estupiñán because he had the difficult Newcastle and Arsenal fixtures. But with Rashford injured, and for me, I wouldn't have risked dropping Rashford. Estupiñán with 2 games, was quite an obvious pick for me. So I think that was helpful. But overall in the game week, we just have a look at the score lines. Newcastle drawing, which is not ideal. Kane keeps scoring. Sterling, has he become a differential? Can chat about that later. United, Fernandes returned finally. Mitrovic back in the goal. So I had a comment the other day asking whether Mitrovic was a differential, and honestly, could be quite a good pick. Minutes could be a concern, but yeah. And then, guess to note, Tony was not in the squad. Gundogan with back-to-back 2 goals, and then Brighton kept a clean sheet, which they have struggled defensively recently. So interesting to see. But that was Game Week 36. It's still ongoing, but for those who've picked Wilson, fair play. If you had Estupiñán, I'm sure you're chuffed, unless you're an Arsenal fan. And Edison actually getting bonus points, which is weird, in what was a 3-0 win. I don't think he got any save points, so didn't watch the game, so I'm not entirely sure why, but yeah. So let's have actually look at the Premier League table. Arsenal's defeat means Man City need basically 2 points in their next 3 games to win the league. So the title's over. And what in this section, what I'm actually talking about is what teams actually have something to play for. So Arsenal, one of them, they basically have nothing to play for. They've locked in second, easy. So it means maybe you may not want to pick any Arsenal players. I reckon in the last day of the season, they'd want to go out on the bang, but you just never know, basically. Especially defensively, I'd say. So you shouldn't target the defenders anymore. Attackers are still worth it, I reckon. Man City as well, chasing a treble, so most likely I would think win their next game to wrap up the title. And so how much rotation will there be at that trade-off of having fresh players, but also being match fit? So Man City have something to play for, Arsenal don't. Newcastle, United and Liverpool, they're the interesting ones. They've got a top 4 race on their hands. I mean, you're including that with Brighton as well. So especially if they win their game in hand, they'll be on 61. Would be crazy to see Brighton in the Champions League, but most likely it would be these three clubs. I would have thought Newcastle and United being the favourites. And then for the last space in Europe, so I'm pretty sure there's 2 spots for the Europa League. Oh, actually, maybe there isn't. But yeah, so 4. So this would be the Europa Conference League, but so Spurs are currently in that spot, but Villa 11 points could really, after them beating Spurs, they beat Spurs, right? This was this game week. Yeah, they did, right? Could mean Tottenham don't get any European football don't get any European football for the season at all. But Spurs do have something to play for. Villa do have something to play for, so that's interesting. Whilst Brentford, outside shout, I guess. Fulham, Chelsea, Palace, Wolves, Bournemouth basically have nothing to play for. Absolutely nothing. So if we just look at relegation, in case we want some of those more outside differentials, West Ham are basically safe, but probably need to... They're not fully safe like Bournemouth, because if you think about it, Leeds, if they got max points, they'll be on 37. So same as West Ham, which is why I think they're kind of safe, but you know. But Leicester, if they win all 3 games, they'll be on 39. So getting 39 is basically safe, it seems like. Which Bournemouth are on 39, so you think they're safe. It's just West Ham, if they get 2 more points, I'd reckon they're safe. But they still need to get a few more points. But that leaves us with 6 teams battling out for relegation, which is 5 teams, sorry. West Ham, Forest, Everton, Leeds, Leicester. So potentially clubs to target if you want differentials, because they have something to play for, but also they're battling relegation. Probably don't want them. Then Southampton, we got relegated, which is sad to see. Maybe there's a reaction after, but I doubt it. They've been pretty awful. Okay, so if we have a look at the game week 37 fixtures, we're obviously going to look at these teams playing doubles. So we've got Brighton, City, United, Chelsea. They're all doubling, so probably players most managers will target. I would say City, do they? Brighton have a very appealing double game week fixtures because they get to play Southampton, so you're banking on a really big score, and then they could be playing a City that have already won the league. Which is why City's double isn't as appealing, because is Chelsea difficult anymore? But they have a difficult, historically fixture against Chelsea, where they could win the league. But if they do win the league, could there be even more pep roulette for their second game against Brighton? Bearing in mind they have the Champions League, so they're going to play Wednesday. I think the starters will play Wednesday for the Champions League, and then Sunday against Chelsea to wrap up the league, most likely. And also it's just Chelsea. Then they might rotate against Brighton, which is arguably the harder game. But rotations could be difficult. But I think... Brighton and City got the best 2 sort of fixtures. They got quite nice fixtures. United got quite nice as well because they play Bournemouth and then play Chelsea. So if I had to rank, United got the best fixtures, then Brighton, then City. Sounds outrageous, but more because City's rotation. Chelsea, on the other hand, they play City and United. Sometimes you may have doubles, but they're not a team you'd want to target, and I think this is one of those cases. I would tell most people to stay clear of Chelsea assets, to be honest, unless you're really desperate for differentials. But why don't we talk about the players I'm looking to target, or think people should target, where we've got a mixture of differentials and obvious picks, and I'll state which is which. So De Gea. as goalkeepers go. 13.5%. Positives, he's probably going to play for the rest of the season. And United, probably likely to keep clean sheet against Bournemouth maybe, and Fulham, Chelsea, who knows. But a nice end of the season. So if you got him, it means you've got the starts, which is, well, when we talk about him, like Dalot, he may not be starting the next 3 games. And I guess he could even, well, he's not been starting. Wan-Bissaka's been starting. But him and Dalot, Wan-Bissaka and Dalot might share the right back spot. So De Gea could be a more safer, boring pick. We look at Edison. Now, he's interesting. He got dropped here against West Ham in what was a double game week. If City win the title within these 2 weeks or whatever, is it likely he gets dropped again? The only appeal of Edison really is because it felt he could be undroppable. But if he's not, is there any point having him? He just got delivered some bonus points, actually, which... Bonus points... he's had quite a few, actually, but is he more sure than, say, an Akanji or a... He's not fit, but if it was, like, Ake, I would say Edison just doesn't feel as sure of a starter after the Ortega. It might just be because I, as Edison owner, have been hit with the Ortega rotation. But if you're going to go for it, you might as well go for a City defender. So maybe that gives you a better upside, like an Ake, who is flagged though. You know, hardcore. Steel, super cheap, great way to get the defense. I would say if most people have 2 Brighton midfielders, so I would go for Estupina. He's been the standout defensive option. Steel is very cheap, but I don't think money is an issue for many FPL managers. So Estupina finally got an assist and then a goal. He generally, how many has he got? 7 assists, 1 goal. I think he's a great pick to close out the season because you've got Southampton, City, and then you got Villa, which is interesting, but who will probably score. But I think a lot of teams are going to score the last game week of the season. So it's just going to be about attack. So having attacking defenders will be better. If I had to pick one of these goalkeepers, I guess De Gea. Later I'm going to talk about if you had a free hit draft, say. So I don't want to give away who I'm picking necessarily, but right. If I just had to touch upon who might be a differential, what's his ownership? I guess just by ownership alone, Steel could be interesting. But goalkeeper is probably not where you're going to win your mini leagues back. Okay, let's go from, I guess, points total. But White, I've added him in case Arsenal's got a nice end to the season. But as I alluded to, they haven't got much to play for, so I wouldn't be surprised, especially with Forest fighting for survival, they get a goal. I would think Arsenal would win, and we've had quite a good record away from home, actually. It's at home is where we've struggled. But I could see Arsenal conceding the last 2 games. Last game of the season is normally just relatively high scoring, and then against Nottingham Forest, battling for survival. I wouldn't target Arsenal defenders, but White, if you're looking for single game weekers, I'm not entirely sure why, but White is probably the standout. Maybe Tierney if you want a little cheaper. Another single game weeker is Trent. Now, he's kept a clean sheet, and then assist, 2 assists. If you viewed him as midfielder, I think you'd, at 7 million, would you? But you'd be relatively happy with this return. So, he hasn't played his game in game week 36 yet, but I could see that. Okay, I would think Villa's going to score in game week 37. But with Trent, you always want the attacking returns, and you can see probably a higher return. So, especially against Southampton, it could be a mammoth score. So I think he's quite a good option to target if you're quite stocked up with City, Brighton, and United players and you don't want Chelsea, which is what I recommend not going. So, for example, I'm not sure what Chelsea defenders are fit, but would you want a Chelsea defender playing City or United twice, or Trent against Aston Villa? Maybe Trent is what I'd say. Estupiñán, covered him. Good tackling threat. Hasn't got rotated much as well. Yeah. Brighton chasing for Europe. Great pick. Shaw. So I think the obvious United defensive pick is Shaw. He can return attacking returns. He hasn't returned one in quite a while, but he's also mixed in with playing at centre back. Just looking at the fixtures, great fixtures, nailed on starter, good option. Dalot, as mentioned, he's been dropped recently. I reckon in a double, he might start one and then Wan-Bissaka might start one, which makes both of them less viable options. But Wan-Bissaka, just to go to him, he's been really good, and actually his minutes been pretty good. Even though I think he might start one and then Dalot will start the other. And I can see Wan-Bissaka maybe starting the FA Cup final, and so Ten Hag will want more emphasis of him playing. But he's cheap, uninspiring. Could he get a goal? Maybe, but if he did, you're lucky rather than, astute business, but he's cheap. So if you need a cheap United defender, go for Wan-Bissaka. Shaw starter, then Shaw. Yep. Otherwise, if you want goalkeeper, then go for De Gea, but otherwise I'd go Wan-Bissaka or Shaw. Dalot, I wouldn't go for, but he has been quite a good FPL asset. Okay, so Man City defenders. I'm missing one, actually. If I just add him to the watch list. Cool. So Man City defenders. These are the three I'd go for. And I'll talk about all three of them at once, in a sense. Ake probably would be the better option. Well, I wouldn't say best, actually, but he generally would have more attacking threat playing at left back. He's flagged. Would I go for him? No. He's going to get rotated for sure. So it's difficult to say. So then it comes John Stones, who's been playing in midfield. He clearly is really important to the system now, which means if he played against Chelsea, maybe get rested in Brighton. So then could Chelsea score? Possibly, but they also might not. And then Brentford, I reckon the starters will play at Brentford. So they'll play Chelsea and Brentford. But just the rotation risk is crazy. And Brentford last game of the season, I reckon they'll score too. So if we look at Akanji, he's the one who's probably started the most. He's the most reliable. So in summary, I would say Akanji is the boring, safe pick. Then Stones. If you want a more risky option, Ake. How would I rank this with Edison? Probably Akanji, Stones, Edison, Ake. Goalkeepers are just not necessarily exciting. Wan-Bissaka we've talked about. Okay. So let's move on to midfielders. And Salah, I think he's still something to target. End of the season, Southampton, Villa, I think he's going to score a good amount. And quite possibly a captain pick for the last game week. Maybe he's not one to consider this game week because he would be a lot of money. And if you haven't got him for this week, I would probably try to go for a double. But if you're looking for a single game week, as in you're happy with your double game week selections, Salah, if you haven't got him yet, top of the list. Now, I think Arsenal assets will be forgotten about. They are still generally highly owned, but I think if you want a differential, one to set up for also game week 38, Odegaard recently has been performing as you'd like as a captain, scoring 3 goals in the last 3 games, and actually, how much is that? 5 goals in the last 6 games. The issue of Arsenal, they haven't got much to play with, but Odegaard slightly cheaper than, well, actually he's not cheaper than Martinelli, I don't think, but could be a good differential pick if you can say that. No one's going to really go for him this week, so I put Martinelli here, which he's flagged now, so probably wouldn't go for. Interestingly, he got... Well, actually, no, he didn't go. Yeah. He had an amazing stretch when a lot of people thought maybe you should drop him. He went crazy. Supernova. Because he got dropped a little bit. Or people were fearful of Trossard. But he went on a great run. I think the time to own up Martinelli is probably past. If you still have him, keep him. And then for the game against Wolves would be great. I probably wouldn't bring him in. Maybe actually for the last game week. Rashford. I'll talk a bit more about him when I talk about my team. But if he's fit, you're obviously going to keep him. If he's not fit... It depends on your money situation. I could be tempted to rest him so you can have him for Fulham. I think if he doesn't play Bournemouth or Chelsea, but he is kind of fit, Ten Hag will want him to be game fit for the FA Cup final, and hence he'll probably give him some minutes and start him maybe at Fulham. Might mean that he will get substituted early and stuff like that, but he's been one of the standout players. Recently haven't returned that well, but generally, more likely than not to be contributing for United. But I'll discuss more about whether you could sell him or not when I talk about my team. But then the next obvious United pick, quite expensive, 9.4, but Bruno Fernandes. If you look at his XGI, it's actually quite good. 1 last game, 0.5 the game before, 0.54, 0.49. On pens as well, I'm pretty sure. I think he's one of the players people... Would they overlook? Not sure now that Rashford's injured, but he's probably not going to be that popular. 8.8%. I think he's a weird price point. People are probably going to try to go for the City midfielders. Especially if you have Salah in your team and you have a Kane or Haaland. It's hard to fit Bruno, so... But I think he could be quite a differential pick, actually. A differential captain as well. Another differential. Eze. He has been going crazy. Since Roy Hodgson's back, scored against Leeds, 2 against Southampton. It's Southampton, though. 1 against West Ham, 2 against Bournemouth. He's got Fulham and Nottingham Forest next. Is he going to keep scoring? I think so. So, if... Like I say again, if you need double game week options, these type of players are not the ones you want because they're just playing once. But if you're kind of happy with your options, these are the type of players I think can be forgotten. And Eze has been going crazy. His XGI, or XG specifically as well, is relatively high for the games. He does have a few games where it goes low, so there is some fluctuation, but generally he's been one of the form players recently. We've spoken about the Brighton players quite a lot in the other video, so I won't talk too much, but stand-up picks in Matoma, McAllister. McAllister's probably... I would go for him instead of Matoma, just because McAllister... his XG was pretty low against Arsenal, and I think he's playing a deeper role now, so if we have a look... He's on pens, that's why. I mean, I know, but... he's playing 10 here, apparently. I mean, it's quite a low XGI for the last game, then. If he's playing 10 and he's on pens, I would do McAllister first, Matoma, then next. March, I don't know if he'll be back yet. Even if not, he didn't seem to be favoured. McAllister was in 10. It must have been. Good to check BBC Sport though. Fixtures, Saturday, Sunday, Brighton. Because I think BBC Sport was saying he wasn't, I believe. Okay, he was. Right, he's playing number 10. Then I would say McAllister, then Matoma. The City boys. Is Gundogan not there? Oh, let me add him. So, the City boys, who would you pick? I think Foden slyly. Oh, it was Everton I knew who'd start. For the next game, let's just say most City midfielders are going to get one game each. And so which one would you pick? I personally probably would say Gundogan just because he's been on fire. With this much goal contribution, is he going to sustain it? I don't think so. But against Chelsea, could I see him scoring the winning goal, say, get a 10-point return? Yes. And then in his last Premiership game, could he score as well? Brentford? Yeah. I think he's the standout pick. Then I'd go for... Will I do Foden or Mahrez? Foden... Yeah. I think if you go Mahrez, he's more than locked in right winger, bare XG numbers, and then Foden. Oh, no, so I probably would do Gundogan, then Mahrez, then Grealish, then Foden. Grealish is not here, but the only thing I'd say is if you wanted more of a differential pick, Foden is who I'd pick. Oh, Mahrez is lower owned though. So maybe Mahrez is the pick for lower differential. Gundogan obviously is the key differential pick with only 3.7%, but I think that's probably going to skyrocket a little bit. Interesting to see what Grealish... I mean, Grealish must be owned by lots. There's so many... No. There's just so many Man City midfielders that everyone's distributed their opinions. So, okay. Going into other differential territory, Sterling. 2 goals in Nottingham Forest. Assists against Bournemouth. Difficult fixtures though. City, United, Newcastle. I wouldn't go for it, but I think it's just worth flagging, having just scored 2 goals. So much money. If you're going to spend 9.7, spend it on Fernandes. If not, go for a Salah, honestly. So Gakpo, similar to Salah. If you got Salah, I probably wouldn't double up because there's so many midfield double gaming options that I think you would go for and want instead of Gakpo. But with Villa, Southampton, I think worth targeting if you do want to make up ground. Maybe one for more game week 38 actually. Now, this is a differential. Anthony, flagging him because he assisted against Wolves. And I guess it's because Rashford's injured. So was it Sancho who started? Let's have a look. Sancho, yes. So him and Sancho could be proper differentials. Anthony has more locked in minutes and probably would start even without Rashford. So I'd say Anthony's probably the pick if you want a differential for United. We've seen him, like when he just came in, he can score a few long range strikes. Double game week, I reckon he'll play both. Bournemouth, Chelsea, Fulham could be worth a shout. Basically, if you want a Rashford replacement, Anthony could be the one. I would say Fernandes first, but because of the price point, you could then do Anthony. So forwards, Haaland. Most people have Haaland, but if you don't, you probably would go crazy against Chelsea, maybe, to win the league, but I don't think he'll play both games. But he hasn't been rested yet. He actually hasn't been rested yet. So I thought he'd have got rested at Leeds, but he didn't. But once the title's wrapped up, I'm sure he'll get rested against Brighton. So I reckon he'll start Chelsea, Brentford. If you haven't got him, probably up there with the captaincy pick. Jesus, just similar on the same line in the sense that if you want differentials, some of the Arsenal players could be one to go. How's his XG? Dropped recently, actually. But generally, he has shown he gives big XG. The only thing is he does underperform normally. Isaac, to us, I think he forgot to remove him, but actually for a 1 week punt against Leicester, who, if they're losing at Liverpool, are in really, really big trouble. Martial, wouldn't go for him, but another differential. XG numbers are quite good in the last 3 games-ish. But rotation, I reckon, with Weghorst and injuries. You don't want that headache. And then the Brighton boy, Enciso. So I only watched the highlights for the Arsenal game, but Enciso looked quite good. Got a expected goals of 0.91. Scored the goal as well. A goal. For 4.6, if you're trying to enable... So, for example, if you had Kane, and you haven't got triple Brighton, but I reckon from last week most people will, but if you don't, or let's say if you had a Kane, instead of Kane you could get Enciso, for example, and then get rid of a Matoma, McAllister for a, if you have the budget, sort of a Salah Fernandez, and he enables that and looks, I mean, he's been getting good minutes. Rotation is a risk, but for that price, I think it's fair enough. So those are the plays I would target for this game week. Mainly, obviously, the double game weekers. But now I think I'm going to show you a free hit draft I would do from those players that I would do if I had a free hit. Just to see what are the players I think are the best for this game week. And here we go. So, rationale. Ignore the bench, really not important. Obviously, this is based on my team, so you may not have the funds for it exactly, but you probably can shove some money somewhere. Right. Midfield. Yes, okay. So I've got Fernandez, Matoma, McAllister, Salah, Gundogan. Why have I got Salah? He might just be a single game weeker, but if Rashford is injured, I'd rather have Salah than any other sort of double game weeker in midfield. So I think he's going to be quite important. And in this hypothetical situation, if he did, he would roll over. Well, not for a free hit, but he would roll over to game week 38. Fernandez, I think, without Rashford specifically on penalties, is going to be quite a good differential. The Brighton boys speak for themselves. And then you basically have to pick one of the 3 for Man City midfielders. Gundogan's been red hot. That's why I'd pick him. I think he's the favourite pick. It's not boring, but it's obvious. But it's probably who I'd pick as a Man City midfielder. Look at the defence. Sure, obvious. Estupiñán, especially after last week as well. 2 home games. One of the more attacking Brighton assets in regards in defence. Pretty solid pick. And then I would go for maybe a City defender. I think Akanji's the most likely one to play twice, which is sad for me as a Stones owner, but we'll see. And my thought process, again, as I said, was Ederson probably won't start, might not even start both games, which is why I'd rather have the upside of a defender, but Akanji's probably not going to score a goal. But might as well have an outfielder. And so De Gea is a double up in defence because I feel they can... Well, let's have a look at the XG conceded, just for comparison. XG conceded 0.4, 1 It's not been great. It's not been great. So maybe you wouldn't want to double up. But well, I'll show you a few changes you can make to this. But De Gea, if there's no Rashford, my third United player felt like De Gea. I didn't want Martial, say. And then Haaland's obvious. He might not play twice, but you wouldn't risk it, right? And then Kane, he's just Mr. Consistent. Against Brentford, I reckon he's just going to keep going. Right. But what if Rashford is fit? If Rashford's fit, you could do something like... So, you could get rid of Salah. Basically, you could do Rashford, and then instead of the hair, you could do... Who'd you do? Let's have a look quickly. Ba-da-boom. Could do Newcastle. Villa, Alisson, Wolves and Bournemouth. That's quite a good pairing. Who would you go for? De Gea was quite a good pick for me. I think if you were to get Rashford, actually, I would do then Ederson. This is what I would do because I didn't like the picks I was seeing. And instead of a Kanji, I'd do like a Trent. Oh, Alexander. Yeah, this is what I'd do. If Rashford's fit and you did a free hit, I'd do more of a Rashford, Trent, Ederson. So basically replacing De Gea with Rashford, a Kanji with Ederson, and then Salah becomes Trent. You've got quite a lot of money in the bank still, so... But to be honest, the team's pretty good, so you could beef up the bench if you had a free hit. But this is just what I would do. Another suggestion, so if you wanted a lot of double game weekers, you could do that, and then... I didn't touch on Chelsea, but let me just have a quick look at their squad to just give you options. Oh, the injuries are crazy. Absolutely crazy. If you were desperate for just double game weekers, I could do... Oh, he got rested though, right? Nah, too unsure. So I would do something like a Chalobah. Maybe. And then Kane could become Havertz. He doesn't even really start. I'd do like Enciso. And then Matoma I'd get rid of for Sterling. Oh. That could be one variation, but I do not like this at all. If you just want double game, because these maybe are who I would target. Feels like a wasted midfield position spot having Sterling there, but if you had to, I'm just not confident any of Chelsea strikers playing properly. Havertz, João Felix, yeah, no, don't like it. So I would go back to Kane. What am I doing? All right. So this is Rashford, and it became Trent, right? Alexander Arnold. The other suggestion, what you could do, going back to a Kanji, and this was here, this was Salah, is if you really like your team, as it was, but Rashford is fit, I would just maybe... So basically, this spot could be the United midfield spot. Keep Salah because you'd want him for next week. Like this has been a mix of talk of like if it was a free hit, then I'll do this, but also bearing in mind that just these are the group of the best players for this game week, and so if you had a team similar to this, different ways I would change up the sort of transfer strategy. So if you don't want two United midfielders because they haven't been scoring that well, then if you think Rashford would be fit, don't have Bruno. And then have as I've done it here. So I think that would be quite good. Maybe we can touch on captaincy. So if we look at watch list. Yes, okay. So the obvious pick where we start every week is Haaland. But rotation is a very big concern, even though it's not happened yet. I reckon it's like 50-50 of whether he's got to start both games, which is risky. The other picks are Fernandes. So especially if Rashford's not playing, then he becomes one of the, in a sense, the star United midfielder. So you've got Haaland, Fernandes. If I was going to pick a Brighton player, McAllister, just because recently he had scored more than Matoma. He'll be on pens as well. So it'll be those three. Just look back at this watch list. Gundogan could be an interesting pick as well. And that's as far as I would go. For single game weekers, if you want a solid return, Kane. But of the other players I mentioned, they'll play twice. I think they'll return maybe similar amount to Kane, unless he goes crazy, which is possible. Or Salah. Salah has been pretty good recently. Like, really good. He's scored 4 in his last 5 games. Hasn't played against Leicester yet. Probably will score. So, just summary, that would be... The selection for captaincy would be Haaland, McAllister, Fernandes / Rashford, Kane. Let me start again. Haaland, McAllister, Rashford or Fernandes, Salah, maybe Gundogan. An outside pick could be the player you think will most likely start, or if you think he'll start, Wilson or Isaac, because they're playing Leicester afterwards. But that would be quite ballsy for what is a double game week. I doubt many managers do that, which is maybe reason 2. But I think if you're going to do differential captain pick, it's basically not doing Haaland. So I think Haaland's the obvious pick. Fernandes is then, the second. No. Let me say that again. Haaland's the obvious captain pick. If you want a differential captain, then you could go for like a McAllister or Fernandes. For what is a double game week, without Rashford, there isn't maybe an overwhelming amount of captaincy candidates. Gundogan as another outside shout, but after back-to-back 2 goals and obviously assists against Everton, I'm not sure I see him doing a crazy amount. I could see him scoring a goal, so 7-8 points with him, 9 points. I reckon that's what I would estimate Gundogan getting in terms of points. But that's captaincy. So let's talk about my team. It's still very early in the week, so this is not necessarily likely of what I'm going to do with my team, or I'm not going to set anything in stone here. But this is my team. If I go back to planner, let's do planner. Go back. Let's refresh. Cool. This is my team, and I would set it up as like this. How did I do it actually? Oh, I did Trippier. Right. And then I would do Isaac like that. Haaland captain. Is that what I would do? Not sure. Weiss. Okay. This is probably how I'd set out. The biggest issue is will Rashford be fit? If he's not, I didn't have a decision to make. If he is, this is my team. I'm not sure I'd do any transfers. I just don't want any Chelsea players. And I can't afford Trent, so I'd probably keep Trippier. The decision here then is, so if Rashford's fit, Trippier or Isaac? Based on this predicting, this FPL, this FPL.team website, it predicts the amount of points. Trippier is stated to be more likely to score higher than Isaac. I wonder what Wilson is actually. 3.3. Okay. Could make sense if you think Newcastle keep a clean sheet and Trippier could get attack and return. Isaac's probably a more exciting pick there. And also, Newcastle haven't been keeping clean sheets. They just haven't, right? Meaning they're due one. So, and they're at home. So I'll probably do... So this is probably what I'll do. I'm not very happy with my City triple up. I kind of probably messed up banking in on Stones. But now, especially with Gundogan. But I knew how my midfield would be shaped out. I would have thought I had Matoma, McAllister, Fernandes and Rashford locked in as my midfield. So this was going to be my City spot, but then I needed Salah. But now, because Rashford's injured, I kind of now want back that City spot. If all these 5 are fit, I'm happy. So what would I do with Rashford? So to plan it, I would have to look at game week 38 to see how my team's looking. I would have Edison, Estupinan. I would like to start as little defenders as possible. Probably something like this. Haaland captain, obviously. If I could somehow find Kane. No, I won't afford Kane. Jesus, just for the Arsenal bants. Yeah. This is the type of team I'll probably look for. Can't afford Trent, so this is probably what I'll do. I'd probably maybe switch out Trippier for, say, STP now or someone. I don't know. Or Matoma, So if I'd want that, it just means that I don't need to set anything up, basically. Or it might be useful to have 2 transfers for the last game week, depending on my mini league situation. So in summary, if Rashford is indeed injured, I could go for an Anthony, but don't particularly like that pick. But against Bournemouth, you know what? I most likely would go for Anthony. If Rashford's injured, but we'll have to find that closer to the date. If not, if we put Rashford back here, I might just start with Isaac. And that would be my pick. Bit boring, I feel. Not that exciting, but my team's kind of set up. Unless I take a -4, get Stones out for Gundogan. So I could do something like Stones for, I don't know. Who's good? Kufau. Just for money, but also got good-ish fixtures. And then I could do Rashford for Gundogan. Like that. And that's what I'll start with. But why am I taking -4 where Gundogan could be quite unreliable? Not sure. Maybe I'll end with him on the last game week of the season. So it could be something like this, where I said I wanted Jesus. But let's bring this back to Isaac. And then, what did I do? Yeah, okay. So if Rashford is still injured, or Matoma, whatever, I can, if this is Rashford, I would actually do more like get rid of Matoma for Gundogan. If I had 2 transfers, that is. Oh no, if I had that, fine. I'm not sure where the money's might have messed up because I've screwed it a little bit up. So I just refresh actually. Bring everything back to how it was. Rashford for Isaac. Captain. Yeah. And then here I'd get rid of him for Gundogan. That could be my tactic for, and then Stones just get rid of. Let's just say white. Cool. So that's my team. I'm not going to lock in anything yet, but this is probably how it's going to look like. Isaac probably here. But yeah, right. Game week 37. Double game week 37. The last double game week. A very important week for mini leagues. And if you have a chance, if you're still within a chance of getting top spot, trying to keep top spot, hopefully this has been helpful. 2 more weeks of FPL to go. We can do this. Game week 36 hasn't finished yet. Interesting to see. Hopefully Isaac balanced it out because my choice of not doing Wilson has really annoyed me. But that aside, enjoy game week 37. I'm sure the double game weeks will be somewhat of a letdown. The excitement is building this team that has so many doubles, but then actually you're going to realise so many people getting rotated, right? We'll see. Catch you later.